Our mind's not going
Almost.
All right. Recording Genesis chapter 11.
the Tower of Babel. At one time, all the people of the world spoke the same language and used the same words. As the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia, and settled there. They began saying to each other, "Let's make bricks and harden them with fire." In this region, bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world." But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower the people were building.
Look, he said, the people are united and they all speak the same language. After this, nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other. In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world, and they stopped building the city. That is why the city was called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. This is the account of Shem's family.
All right. Don and Elaine.
Oh, I guess I didn't finish it.
2 years after the great flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of
Arphaxad. Arphaxad.
After the birth of
Arphaxad.
Shem lived another 500 years and had other sons and daughters. When
Arphaxad.
was 35 years old, he became the father of
Shelah.
After the birth of
Shelah. Arphaxad.
lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. When
Shulela.
was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. After the birth of Eber,
Shulela.
lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters.
When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. After the birth of Peleg, Eber lived another 430 years and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. After the birth of Reu, Peleg lived another 209 years and had other sons and daughters. I don't know where I started and where I'm supposed to stop.
You're going to stop at 25.
When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. And after the birth of Serug, Reu lived another 207 years and had only sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. After the birth of Nahor, Serug lived another 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. After the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years and had other sons and daughters.
All right. Good evening, Olens. Glad you're able to join us. We are in Genesis 11, verse 26, and glad he's about to read 26 to, yeah.
Okay. After Terah was 70 years old, his sons Abram, Nahor, and Haran were born. This is the story of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran was the father of Lot. While his father Terah was still alive, Haran died in Ur in Babylonia, where he was born. Abram and Nahor both married. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Milcah. She was a daughter of Haran, who was the father of both Milcah and Ishka. Sarai was not able to have children.
All right, Monk, can you read 31 and 32?
And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai. His sons, Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran.
All right. Anything stand out in this chapter?
That's a big family.
Boy, I
Yeah.
thought the names nowadays are really difficult, but this is even more difficult.
I had my translator.
Well, it's Hebrew, so obviously everything that in usually any name in another language is hard to get used to.
They lived a pretty good age at that point, it looks like.
Right, right. It seemed like Shem, which is Noah's son, lived about 600, right? Which was significantly lower than people before the flood, almost by 300 years. And then by the time we get to Terah, Terah lived 205 years.
Oh,
So, which is again significantly lower. And so it seems like every generation was just getting lower and lower and lower in their age. And when we studied the last chapter, not chapter 10, but chapter 9, God actually said that's the biggest reason why he allowed meat, because for some reason, God thought it was a wise thing that man wouldn't live 900 years. And maybe it's because, the longer you live, the more evil you'll be able to do if you're an evil person. Or if you live longer, the more pain you'll be able to witness in your lifetime. I'm not really sure. I've heard a lot of arguments one way or the other, but it does seem like there is, I almost hate to say it because it's really hard to look at it this way. But if you read behind the lines in Genesis, God actually is the one who said, yeah, I don't want you guys to live that long. There is a lot of disadvantages in a sinful world to live long. And so he was the one who said, I'm going to make sure that people don't live long. And I know some people have a really tough time with that. And I think all of us want to live forever. And I'm pretty sure God wants us to live forever. And there will be a time when we will, but not while we're here on earth.
I've always wondered, how far did they get with this tower?
I know.
And it didn't say that it was just that God destroyed it.
Mhm.
They just moved. So you wonder, how long did it last? I know there's some people who say they know right where it is, but I've just been curious, how far did God let them go?
Yeah, me too. And did they just get so frustrated? They all just left it,
Mhm.
just like nobody came back and says, you know what? I think I can finish this. I think everybody just forget this. And then literally everybody just scattered.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to bring up that wasn't really brought up here on this chapter, but if you look at chapter 10, I want us to kind of go chapter 10 and start with verse 8. It says, Cush was also the ancestor of Nimrod, who is the first heroic warrior on earth. Since he was the greatest hunter in the world, his name became proverbial, and people would say, this man is like Nimrod, the greatest hunter in the world. Now, the meaning of Nimrod, I don't know, I was just wondering if you guys know what the meaning of Nimrod is.
No.
I don't know.
The meaning of Nimrod is let us rebel.
Let us
And-
rebel.
Let us rebel. And I think that is almost like a foundation to what's happening in chapter 11. Since if the greatest person in the earth at some point in time, the greatest warrior, the one that everybody really looked up to, is every time you said his name, it's almost like saying, hey, yeah, look, there's let us rebel. Let's go follow, let us rebel. I think it becomes at the very least subconscious, where people are like, yeah, let us rebel. And it kind of shows you the mindset that people had during the time of the Tower of Babel. And I don't know. I think now I don't know if there's anybody who's named Nimrod. Maybe a dog here or so. Maybe there is. So anybody here know somebody who's named Nimrod?
No.
Okay.
I've
Yeah,
heard,
glad he said there's some Filipinos. His name is Nimrod. I'm sorry. Did you say something, Fred?
I've heard the name used,
Yeah, I know.
but as a stupid person.
Right. I'm serious. I was just about to say that. I know as a kid, that's what we do. To insult people, we call them a Nimrod.
You're such a
Really?
Nimrod.
Never heard that.
And so, again, you begin to see the mindset that people were starting to have. And so Babel is called, the meaning of Babel is the confusion. And again, this is, we're kind of giving you conjectures, guesses that some of my teachers had, and they got it from some theologians, or as they were reading this, they got it. But one of my evangelism teachers was saying that he thinks that Satan was really frustrated when God just came down and confused everybody's language, because that also confused his plan. I have no idea what Satan's ultimate plan is for the Tower of Babel, but it seems again like God was like, no, you can only go so far and not further. And so God was the one who confused the language. And his thing that's like towards the end of time, one of the biggest deceptions that Satan will have is the gift of tongues. And in his opinion, again, there's nothing in the Bible that says this, but in his opinion, this is Satan's getting back at God, is somehow making worship confusing by speaking in tongues. I thought it was an interesting conjecture, and I say conjecture because I've had some people call me up on this, where I'm like, wait a second, that's a guess, that's a conjecture, and I says, yes, it is. And he goes, and then they sometimes get mad, because I'm like, well, I can get guesses sometimes, if it's not there are times when, I do want to try to fit a few things in the puzzle. But it seems to me that there will come a time, this is a good example of God confusing people. He's the one that comes in and says, I will confuse people for a reason. And when we look at 1 Thessalonians, I don't know if you've heard me do this sermon or seminar before. God himself at the end time will be the one to give out the greatest deception. that earth has ever seen. He's going to be in charge of that deception. And he's going to give that because the people in the end times, or the people that live right before he comes, will not love the truth. They would rather hear lies than the truth. And so God will basically say, all right, here's a lie. And in fact, he's going to allow Satan to make it look like the truth. And the only ones who won't be deceived are people who actually know the truth, who love the truth, who have spent their life finding what the truth is. And so this whole thing about Babel, this is also where the root word of Babylon. And when you get to the book of Revelation, Babylon is a symbol for confusion. Babylon is the symbol of the kingdom that Satan sets up right before Jesus comes to deceive the whole world. And it all stems from this story of Babel, of people who were smart enough to rebel against God. And God says, no, this is how far you will go. But in the end time, at the time of the end, God is saying, again, I'll let you go so far, but no further. And the thing that's going to end the confusion of Babylon, does anybody remember what it is? What's going to end the confusion of Babylon before Jesus comes? It's a 7 last plagues. It is the destruction that, the 7 last plagues is the water's going to turn blood, the seas are going to turn blood, there's going to be boils, there's going to be darkness, there's going to be a great earthquake, there's going to be the parting of the Euphrates, and that symbolizes how the religious and the secular people that have met, which is called Babylon, is also going to break apart. All of that is what's going to stop Babylon. But I only say this because I believe Babylon is starting to be set up right now. And I don't know. I know if God never said he's in charge of Babylon, it would look pretty scary. And I think most people don't know that Babylon is being set up. That somehow this great powers of religious and secular are building their kingdoms up and deceiving everyone who don't love the truth. And one of the things that is going to culminate this deception is natural disasters. Because there's nothing like fear that will make people just believe everything. And so when I see what's happening in the world today, and I see how fear is driving people to pretty much believe all kinds of stuff, I believe that is the setup of Babel, which is the setup of Babylon. And I think this is also where we can keep telling ourselves, no, God told us this was going to happen. That history is repeating itself. And the same God who came down to Babel and said, no, that's it, you can't go so far, will someday come down again and say, that's it, Satan, you can't go any further. But in the meantime, I think for me, it's interesting to watch what's happening around us. It's interesting for me to watch how people's attitudes towards God, towards the world that we're living is changing. And as one of the things we talked about while I was at Princeton this Saturday, the fact that people are really not prioritizing church or reading the Bible anymore, for me is a setup for Babel or Babylon to come. Because once you start pushing truth away, once you start saying, no, I think I can make my own truth. I'm smart enough to know what truth is. I don't need the Bible. I don't need church. I don't need God. I think you just set yourself up to be part of Babylon. What do you guys think about that?
I think they're in for a big surprise.
Yeah,
Mm.
Lots of disappointment.
it's helpful to know what's coming instead of maybe be surprised.
Right. Right.
Just like they said, just like in Noah's time, were ignoring everything, and people are doing that again today. So they'll be left behind.
Right.
Is there a boat? Is there a boat being built that we don't know of?
I don't know, Don, is there?
I'm not sure.
No, I think there is. And obviously the book of Revelation calls that the 144,000.
Yeah,
And it's not a boat in a sense. Nobody's building a boat somewhere, but it is people who are choosing every single day to say, I'm going to follow God. Just like Noah and his sons did. I'm going to obey God. I'm going to follow God. Whatever God tells me to do, that's what I'm going to do. Because I do think, like, prophecy tells us in Joel that towards the end of times, young men will dream dreams, old men will see visions. And I'm sure women will be part of that too. It's just the way Bible times talk is all about men. But I do think that people who are close to God will get revelations from God, will get promptings from God, because that's the only way we'll be able to navigate this storm that's about to come.
The 144,000. Is that all that's going to go?
No, it's a symbolic number. It's a symbolic number. And again, we'll get to that as we're going to study Revelation again. But no, it's symbolic. And in fact, the 144,000 and the great multitude that nobody can number, nobody can know the number, they're the same. So the reason why it's symbolic, 144,000, because it's a perfect number. It's 12 times 12 times 1,000. And that's the ultimate perfect number. And so it symbolizes God's perfected people, perfected by the Holy Spirit, perfected because of their commitment to Him. And that's what's going to symbolize God's people at the end time. All righty. Is there anything else? Okay, well, you guys did really well in pronouncing names, because it's the worst is yet to come. So thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.